Petrol prices are soaring to record highs. Pollution is choking our cities. Climate change is no longer a distant threat, it's already here, hitting us in our streets, our lungs, and our wallets. And then suddenly the government unveils a bold solution: E20 fuel. That's petrol blended with 20% ethanol, cleaner, greener, and supposedly cheaper. Here's the kicker: India rolled this out 5 years ahead of schedule, yes, 5 years early. The media called it a triumph. Politicians hailed it as a victory of technology and governance. But here's the question: is it really the miracle fuel everyone claims it to be? Behind the headlines lies a complex reality. Farmers are questioning the promised benefits. Villagers are protesting polluted water. Consumers are complaining about lower mileage and damaged engines. In this video, we're going beyond the slogans, beyond the ads, and beyond the political spin. Today, we uncover the full story of E20 fuel in India, the hidden costs, the untold struggles, and the critical truth of this ambitious energy gamble. So, what is E20 fuel? Simply put, it's petrol blended with 20% ethanol, and alcohol-based biofuel made mainly from sugarcane, molasses, maize, and rice. The government claims it's a win-win: higher octane rating for better engine performance, cleaner combustion, less smoke, fewer emissions, reduced oil imports, saving foreign currency, new income streams for farmers, supporting rural livelihoods. On paper, these numbers look impressive. Let's break them down. 43,000 crore in foreign exchange savings projected for 2025. 40,000 crore in payments to farmers for ethanol procurement. Carbon emissions expected to drop compared to E10, though in reality, this depends on irrigation, fertilizer use, and transport emissions. Sounds perfect, right? But here's the catch. While newer vehicles are designed for E20, most cars and two-wheelers on our roads were built for E10. And with most petrol pumps now dispensing only E20, consumers are left with no choice. So the next question is, where does all this ethanol actually come from? Ethanol production in India can be divided into three generations. First generation, 1G, ethanol, made from sugarcane juice, molasses, and food grains like maize and rice. This still dominates India's production, about 90% of total ethanol. The process is relatively straightforward: fermentation followed by distillation to reach near pure ethanol. Second generation, 2G, ethanol, produced from agricultural residues like rice straw and wheat stubble. More environmentally sustainable because it doesn't compete directly with food, but currently commercially limited and expensive. Third generation, 3G, ethanol, made from microalgae and other non-food biomass. Still mostly experimental under initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Yojana. Here's the reality: despite talk of 2G and 3G ethanol, food crops still dominate production. And that brings us to one of the biggest hidden costs of E20 water. Now, here's something that rarely makes the headlines: water consumption. To produce just 1 liter of sugarcane ethanol, India needs roughly 2,860 liters of water. For grains like rice and maize, the water footprint is also massive, often thousands of liters per liter of ethanol, not the few liters you often hear in media claims. A Stanford-linked study estimated that meeting E20 demand could require hundreds of billions of cubic meters of additional water. To put that in perspective, that's like draining hundreds of thousands of Olympic-sized swimming pools. States like Maharashtra highlight the problem starkly. Sugarcane consumes 70% of irrigation water while occupying just 4% of cropped area. Uttar Pradesh is also seeing critical groundwater depletion, a real concern for millions of farmers and villages. The lesson? Ethanol is sold as a green fuel, but its water footprint makes it one of the most resource-intensive fuels on the planet. Ethanol production isn't just about water, it can also pollute the environment. Here's what ethanol plants can release if not properly managed: acetaldehyde, possibly carcinogenic formaldehyde, carcinogenic acrolein, respiratory irritant, hexane, neurological effects. And then there's vinasse, a toxic byproduct produced in huge volumes. While rules mandate zero liquid discharge, ZLD, violations are reported frequently. Take Punjab's Zira, for example. Villagers allege groundwater contamination, and protests have lasted for years. The environmental cost rarely hits mainstream headlines, but for the people living nearby, it's a daily reality. Here's where ethanol starts clashing with food security. Ethanol demand is reshaping Indian agriculture at a rapid pace. Maize demand for ethanol is projected to jump from less than 1 million tons in 2022 to over 10 million tons by 2025. Rice from FCI stocks is already being diverted to distilleries. India, once a major maize exporter, may soon need to import maize to meet domestic demand. This has real economic consequences. Maize prices have surged, hurting poultry and cattle feed industries. Land diverted to ethanol crops often comes at the expense of pulses and oilseeds, worsening India's food security challenge. The big question we must ask, are we producing energy at the cost of food for our people? Let's talk about the farmers, the people who are supposed to benefit the most from ethanol. The government says ethanol boosts incomes and creates rural jobs. The reality is mixed. Many sugarcane farmers report little increase in prices despite higher ethanol demand. Fertilizer and pesticide use has intensified, raising costs and degrading soil health. Some farmers now spray 7 to 8 times per season compared to once before. Payment delays and disputes with mills remain common. So while ethanol helps sugar mills and politicians securing revenue, stabilizing operations, and winning votes, farmers often see marginal financial gains while shouldering environmental and health risks. Now let's talk about the drivers, the everyday consumers filling up at the pump. Consumers were promised cleaner, high octane fuel. Reality, mixed and sometimes painful. Mileage drop. According to SIAM, the auto industry body, the average loss is 2 to 4%, though some users report much higher drops. For example, a car that used to give 10 kilometers per liter may now only give 8 kilometers. Engine issues. Older vehicles not designed for E20 face risks, rubber seals degrade, injectors clog, and acceleration may suffer. Higher costs, more frequent servicing, replacement of engine components, and maintenance bills have become common. Social media backlash has exploded. Hashtags like Charkas say no to E20 reflect widespread frustration, especially because consumers no longer have a choice. Petrol without ethanol is becoming rare. The rollout of E20 hasn't been smooth, it's causing legal and social conflicts across the country. Supreme Court recently dismissed a PIL demanding ethanol-free petrol, siding with government arguments about farmer benefits. Punjab, Zira. Years of protests over alleged groundwater contamination from distilleries. Other states, villages in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh are resisting new distilleries. Clearly, E20 is not just a fuel issue, it's a social and environmental flashpoint, affecting communities, water resources, and livelihoods. Politicians brand ethanol as a path to energy independence. But let's be real, even at 20 to 27% blending, India will still import most of its crude oil. True energy security requires diverse solutions: solar power, wind energy, electric vehicles, and efficient public transport, not just ethanol and petrol. Here's the political economy angle. Ethanol blending stabilizes sugar mills, ensuring revenue and creating rural vote banks. Politicians get credit while taxpayers subsidize the system. Water, food, and consumer costs are often ignored in headlines. The real choice for India: use ethanol strategically as a bridge fuel or cling to it as a short term political trophy. India isn't the only country using ethanol. Let's see how others do it. Brazil took 40 years to gradually adopt high ethanol blends, built flex fuel vehicles to allow consumer choice, maintained multiple blend options for users. United States, primarily E10 with E85 only for flex fuel vehicles. Many regions still offer ethanol free petrol. Specialized infrastructure ensures safety for higher blends. Europe, gradual adoption with dual fuel systems, offers E5 E10 alongside higher blends to protect older vehicles. Transparent consumer communication. India, by contrast, is fast tracking a mandatory rollout. The lesson is clear: speed without preparation can lead to backlash, social unrest, and environmental harm. Across India, voices of dissent are growing louder. Let's hear what people are experiencing. Urban drivers complain of mileage drops, higher fuel costs, and frequent maintenance. Rural villagers protest polluted water and soil degradation near ethanol plants. Farmers worry about marginal income gains versus skyrocketing input costs. These are real stories, not just numbers, and they highlight an essential truth. Policy cannot ignore those most affected. Sustainability is not just a top down directive, it requires listening to the people on the ground. Ethanol is often marketed as green, But the real picture is more complex. Water footprint. Sugarcane ethanol consumes around 2,860 liters of water per liter produced. Carbon reduction claims. Projected 30% savings often exclude emissions from fertilizer production, irrigation, and transport. Industrial waste. Vinasse, acetaldehyde, and other effluents are serious hazards, and violations of zero liquid discharge (ZLD) rules are frequent. True sustainability requires full life cycle accounting of carbon and water footprint, strict enforcement of ZLD and effluent monitoring, transition to residue based 2G or algae based 3G ethanol. Ethanol intersects with society in profound ways. Water stress triggers migration and conflicts in rural areas. Pollution affects health, causing skin rashes, neurological symptoms, and long term disease risk. Food diversion worsens malnutrition and increases dependence on imports. Ignoring these costs is not just bad policy, it's a moral failure. Energy transitions must be inclusive, ensuring that the benefits are shared with industry, communities, and farmers alike, not just political or industrial elites. E20 fuel in India is a story of ambition, politics, and partial truths. It's a bridge fuel, not a miracle solution. Benefits like reduced carbon emissions, foreign exchange savings, and farmer income are real but limited. Cost environmental degradation, social conflict, food insecurity are hidden and potentially catastrophic. The key question: will India learn from this experience? Will ethanol be a stepping stone to a genuine energy transition with diversified renewables, electrification, and efficient transport? Or will it become just another half baked solution, celebrated in headlines but leaving deeper problems unresolved? The choice is ours, policymakers, industry, and citizens alike. One thing is clear: E20 is not just fuel, it is a mirror reflecting how India balances ambition, governance, and accountability in the age of energy transition. That's the untold story of E20 fuel in India, the hidden truths, the challenges, and the choices ahead. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into India's energy, economy, and environment. Your support helps us uncover stories that matter, so stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.